Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Like I've already been introduced, my name is Corporal Jimmy Thomas, and I'm here today with my friends and colleagues of the Royal Air Force Volunteer Display Team. Today's demonstration will be one of our capabilities and how we use them in modern warfare. There will be a small amount of gunfire in our demonstration today, ladies and gentlemen, but it is nothing to be worried about. It is literally only a starter pistol. First, ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you, we are very much a crowd participation team. I'm going to ask you throughout this demonstration to put your hands together. But first, I'd like you all to put your hands together for yourselves, the great British public, and for all the support you've given to Her Majesty's Armed Forces as they are currently on very dangerous missions throughout the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, for yourselves, a big round of applause. Without your support, ladies and gentlemen, these tours would be much harder. We thank you very much, and Help for Heroes charity thanks you as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to ask you to use your imaginations throughout this demonstration. The area in front of you is green. However, we're going to ask you to imagine a very dusty road in Afghanistan, which is currently being watched by a patrol. However, before we start, I'd like to introduce first Flight Sergeant, the Royal Air Force Police Provost Marshal's Dog Inspector, who would like to come on and ask for permission to continue with our demonstration. Permission has been granted, ladies and gentlemen, by the Deputy Provost Marshal, Wing Commander Mark Wheeler. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, this area is now being watched by a patrol.
Hello, Zero. This is Charlie 2-1. Message over.
Charlie 2-1 from Control. Send over.
Charlie 2-1. Be advised, we're receiving reports of suspicious activity forward of our primary location. Roger so far?
Roger so far.
Charlie 2-1. Request permission to mount a patrol with specialist assets to the area. Over.
Charlie 2-1. Wait out. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, in front of you here we have our dusty road. And as the patrol has already described, we have enemy activity around what we are now describing as a vulnerable point. Ladies and gentlemen, these areas, vulnerable points, are areas where there is a great chance of ambush, of roadside EED, IEDs, a greater risk to all personnel. So now, ladies and gentlemen, firstly I'd like to introduce onto the arena, and like I said, a big round of applause please, because they are nervous. Although they've done tours of Iraq, Afghanistan, walking out in front of a massive crowd of yourselves, all looking down on you, is extremely intimidating. Take it from me right now. So firstly, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce our patrol from the Tactical Police Squadron, led today by Corporal Kev Bailey, and on point, Corporal Erin Pollinger, I apologise, as they now enter the arena. A big round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen, for our patrol from the Tactical Police Squadron. Today's patrol, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, is joined by Corporal John Cahill and Air Dog Skeet, our arms and explosive search dog. Ladies and gentlemen, they've identified the vulnerable point. And Erin on point, has called forward the patrol commander to describe what she's seen in front of her and exactly why she believes it's a dangerous area. All of the personnel from the police squadron currently carrying enough packs for 48 hours in the field, armed with a SA-80 A2 rifle, carrying PRR radio equipment, and they're just now surveying the area in front of them to check to see if they can visually see any hides or threats. She's not happy, ladies and gentlemen, with something she's seen in front of her. She's just describing to the patrol commander her reasons. And now the patrol commander has decided the best use here is to call forward an arms and explosive search dog. Big round of applause, please, for Corporal John Cahill and Air Dog Skeet, the first of our dogs. Corporal Cahill has now explained to his patrol commander the use of his dog and the best way he can be employed. Just confirming exactly what he wants done and how he's going to go about it. Arms and explosive search dogs, ladies and gentlemen, are a fantastic resource. They are saving lives in theatre. They greatly increase the speed of a search. This one dog can search minutes what it would take approximately 20 men a good half an hour to search in front of the team. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, we can't spend that long on the ground. The Taliban will find out where we are. They will come and engage us. Controlling his dog by use of voice and body movement. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, these dogs can search in areas where search teams and search equipment can't be used. Scrapyards. On the cluttered streets of Afghanistan, there's a lot of rubbish. Metal detectors can't be used in all these areas. A search dog as well, ladies and gentlemen, is obviously not affected by factors that will affect the human opinion. If we're tired, if we've had a bad day, if we've seen some bad things, these dogs will work on regardless. They are the unsung hero of this. They were used to great effect, ladies and gentlemen, on Octelic in Iraq. He's just making sure everything's clear. Not so happy with that entrance over there, he's going to go back now. Having thoroughly searched that area, ladies and gentlemen, Corporal Cahill's decided the area in front of him is safe to proceed, and Air Dog Skeet has not detected anything. The patrol can now move forward safely. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Air Dog Skeet. And now the patrol move on. However, ladies and gentlemen, as they approach this vulnerable point, a vehicle from the local village is approaching. This can cause a great threat to us, and they've had to force the vehicle to stop. Vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, ladies and gentlemen, pose a great threat. They have to carry out a search of this vehicle. And they've called out the driver. He's not happy about this, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of the local civilians get upset with us. They go through this routine daily. He's looking a little bit suspicious, ladies and gentlemen, and again the patrol commander is calling forward the armed and explosive search dog. Again, these dogs can be used for a variety of tasks. Like clearing this route here in Afghanistan, they can also be used here in our country to clear venues, big occasions where public military events have happened, they can be used to search vehicles. They can easily search the interiors and exteriors of buildings. However, ladies and gentlemen, our local is extremely upset about the idea of having a dog search his vehicle. He's getting nervous, ladies and gentlemen. They are fully aware in Afghanistan just how effective our dogs can be. He's extremely upset, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't like being searched regularly. He's probably worked for the British military at some stage whilst out in theatre. He's trying to hurry the team along and trying to rush us. Oh, and there's the reason, ladies and gentlemen. He's recently been laid off by the military. He was probably removed from the unit for being suspicious. As you can see there, ladies and gentlemen, Air Dog Ski is carrying out an extremely thorough search of this vehicle. Obviously, our dogs can be used as a multiple detector, ladies and gentlemen. They can find commercial, homemade explosives, military high explosives, detonators, rounds, arms, and ammunition. There is literally no way you can hide these things from our search dogs. Now getting up into the back of the vehicle, ladies and gentlemen, these vehicles overseas are normally packed full of things. In this case, there's a load of furniture. He could have been transporting it somewhere. Sometimes they carry live animals in the back of their vehicles. Again, ladies and gentlemen, our animals are not distracted by wild or domestic animals. They will not be distracted by foodstuffs. We train around all these things, ladies and gentlemen, here in the UK, and put it to great practice overseas. That's the indication from our dog, ladies and gentlemen. Weapons been found. Our criminals made a run, and Air Dog Kubo has been released to capture him. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Corporal Demo Hartford and Air Dog Kubo. In quite a wise decision, our criminal gave himself up, and Air Dog Kubo, a service police dog from Royal Air Force Leiden, was released to conduct a standoff. Now this situation has been taken control of. The man will be searched for any further weapons or items and then arrested. So Corporal Cahill, what was it that was in the vehicle? Please show us to prove there was something there. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, a small machine gun. The local village has been alerted to the disturbance, ladies and gentlemen. People are now starting to flood out of this village to see exactly what's going on. It looks like his wife's come out. She's extremely upset about the fact that he's been arrested. Here come some of his children, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the kind of situations that we encounter throughout our tours. Local villages will get extremely upset with arrests. Some local men have appeared from the area, ladies and gentlemen. The threat is genuinely starting to increase. These men could be carrying weapons now. Soon, the four-man patrol starting to look a little outnumbered here. Still, this crowd is starting to swell. All of the patrollers but now have to be utilised. Ladies and gentlemen, a single patrol dog out on area is effective the same amount as a 9-man patrol. So here behind me we have 2 service police dogs. Air Dog Frisco from Royal Air Force Line, a big cheer for him. And Air Dog Kubo, you've already seen from Royal Air Force Line, another big cheer. These 2 dogs alone are equivalent to a 20-man patrol. And now as the patrol becomes overpowered, the dogs are utilised to defuse the situation. Pushing that crowd back, ladies and gentlemen, a massive round of applause, please. However, ladies and gentlemen, whilst this disturbance is carrying out, an insurgent has broken from cover and fired upon our team. Air Dog Argin is released. He has no intention of letting go, ladies and gentlemen. A massive applause, please, for little Air Dog Argin. Fantastic control there demonstrated by Corporal Gareth Scott. A big round of applause for Gareth Scott, ladies and gentlemen. This year's runner-up at the UK RAF Police Dog Trials. As you can see there, ladies and gentlemen, Ed O'Larkin off lead, fantastic little bit of obedience there. He's intent on guarding his handler, making sure no other harm comes to him. And again, the patrol can regain the situation and arrest the criminal. Big round of applause for our criminals today, ladies and gentlemen. Corporal Jim Morgan from Royal Air Force Wellington. Ladies and gentlemen, our teams will now form up to take a final salute. We hope you've enjoyed watching our display today, ladies and gentlemen, as much as we've enjoyed putting it on for you. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been a fantastic crowd. Please, a final round of applause for the Tactical Police Squadron. Our 2 service police dogs, Air Dog Frisco and Air Dog Kubo. Our patrol dog, Air Dog Argin. And our arms and explosive search dog, Air Dog Skeet. Ladies and gentlemen, not forgetting the unsung heroes of all demonstrations, our angry crowd. Volunteers from Royal Air Force Line and Royal Air Force Wellington and Royal Air Force Halton. Ladies and gentlemen, in the legendary words that have been spoken to our venues for 50 years, the Royal Air Force Police and their dogs.
Come on, let's raise the roof. These guys put their lives on the line every week of the year for us. What a tremendous display.